Hello, my name is Ash. I am currently in flight school, which I remember when I was first thinking about starting flight school, I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I can't wait to get into it. I'm gonna have so much fun. It's gonna be such a great time. I've been humbled. Let's just say that I am humbled. I currently have my private pilot license, which is one of my greatest accomplishments because holy, it has been a journey. I'm currently working on my instrument rating, and I realize there is a distinct lack of female pilots on YouTube and of information about flight school. I get so many DMs on Instagram asking me about flight school, and I remember when I first was looking into it, I was constantly Googling, looking on YouTube, and there just are not that many resources. So here I am to give you my tried and true experience right in the middle of flight school, what I would have done differently, because I would have done a lot of things differently from the get-go. So here's my 10 top tips for before you start flight school. So number one, this is honestly one of the biggest things that I wish I would have fully understood, and that is the difference between Part 61 and Part 141, okay? I Googled things, and you know what? The internet seems to be a big fan of Part 61 schools. Most guys, because it's pretty much all men that I was finding talking about it, were all like, Part 61, Part 61, Part 61 cowboys, let's go. And I was like, okay. People say that Part 61 is the cheaper and faster route to go, and it just makes more sense to do Part 61. So I was like, okay, Part 61, it's gonna be cheaper, I'm gonna get through quicker, absolutely, I wanna get through as fast as possible. I wish so badly that I would have just started with Part 141 from the get-go. Instead, I'm having to backtrack and start it at my instrument rating, and I think I would have gotten through my private so much faster actually if I would have gone the Part 141 route. So I'm just here to be the voice of Part 141 to tell you that you should come do Part 141. I'll probably make a video about all the differences between Part 61, Part 141, and why I'm such a big fan of Part 141, but to sum it up, Part 141 is basically the more structured version of flight school. It tends to be 4-year or 2-year degree programs. I think there are a few other programs that are not degree programs, but they are still very structured. So what 141 means is that they have been, the FAA has approved them more thoroughly. So they basically are operating off of the FAA's actual curriculum. And there's just the amount of things that are just better here are just wild to me. I get free simulators that I get to go fly in. I never had simulators at my first school. That is another big thing, just right there in and of itself. Do not go to a flight school that does not have simulators. Please, dear God, you are going to spend so much more money learning everything in the plane. Okay, number 2. This kind of goes off of the Part 61, Part 141 thing. Pricing. Okay, like I said, everybody said that Part 61 was going to be cheaper. And on paper, it often is because they quote you how much it's going to cost you if you get the minimum amount of hours that it takes to get your rating. So for example, private pilot license. You only need, I think, 40 hours to get a private pilot license, technically. But most people do not get their private pilot license at 40 hours. That is actually wild to me. I can't even imagine having got my private pilot license at 40 hours. It took me quite a while to get landings down, and you just never know what particular thing is going to be difficult for you or anything like that. There's just things that come up, even if maintenance things and weather things happen and then you don't get to fly for a while and then you're kind of rusty and then you have to get back up and like flying again and you're kind of teaching yourself things. The likelihood of you getting through in 40 hours is very low. It's possible, but it's low. Part 61, my experience has been that it has ended up being way more expensive to go through them than if I would have done a more expensive school that's much more structured and like kind of make sure that I'm getting through in the right pacing, if that makes sense. So pricing can be very deceptive. On top of that, I've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of flight schools will kind of, they will quote you just based off of how much it will cost you to get through all of the actual maneuvers and the like requirements of the rating other than your total 250 hours. So like, okay, we get you through all the things that you need to do with commercial, except for the other 100 hours you still need to get to get your commercial license because you need 250 hours. So a lot of times they'll quote you this like $6,000 for this rating, but really you still have to pay for another like 50 hours of flight time so that you can even get the rating because you need to build your hours. So flight pricing is very interesting. So take everything you can with a grain of salt, ask follow-up questions, make sure that's going to cover your total time. It just gets a little bit crazy. Number 3, loans, financing. Oh my God. In case you didn't know, flight schools, no flight schools, not even my Part 141 that I'm at, give you good student loans, okay? You are not eligible for a student loan at a Part 61 school. It's all private loans. We're talking like 15% interest rates here, okay? All private loans. At my Part 141 school, I am eligible for student loans, private student loans, if that makes sense. What I'm doing apparently does not apply to just a normal student loan. I get FAFSA, and then after that, it's like, okay, figure out the other 15 grand per semester. And that just falls into my own savings. I could use credit cards, I could use private student loans. And I personally don't have cosigners, so those rates don't look very pretty, I'll be honest. My interest rate on my first loan was 15%. And yeah, me and my fiance are getting creative with paying this semester. It gets crazy. I originally had a bunch of money saved up for flight school because I was planning on starting before COVID. And then I ended up having to use that 20 grand to just survive for the next year because I was a business owner and I couldn't work. So that money was down the drain. But I do highly recommend that you have some money saved up. That would be very, very, very helpful for you. Or you have parents who would co-sign for you or even pay your loans. That would be so great. I don't have that. So just be prepared that you might be paying some crazy interest rates or struggling to even get payments at all. This is a very privileged industry, unfortunately. Number 4, written versus ground. Okay, this is something I did not understand before starting flight school, and I wish I would have because I would have saved myself a lot of pain. And this is my number 1 piece of advice that I usually give to people, other than go Part 141 to 61, is that the written test that you have to do, so basically in order to pass your private pilot check ride, you have to do both a written test and the actual check ride, okay? The written test is like a 60 question timed test about all things aeronautical knowledge that you need to know for your private pilot license, which in other words is a completely different language. So much stuff that I never, like, I started looking at the questions and it truly felt like a different language. I had no clue what was going on with it. The written stressed me out. It was a good crash test into aviation, I'll tell you that right now. So you have that test, and then you also have your check ride at the end of your rating, which entails a 1 to 3 hour oral exam where they just like interview you about every single possible like aviation thing that you need to know, and then you go do the flight, right? The written test needs to be done before the check ride, and I would just highly I just want you to know that they're different, okay? What you're studying for the written test and what you're studying for your oral are just different. I highly recommend that you pay for a Pilot Institute or Sporties or King School or whatever, something that helps you study for the actual written, because it's a totally different thing. You basically just need to like go through all the questions and kind of memorize them / just like learn them, study them, like study those dead on, target your studying to just the written tests. And then after that, then you can start studying for everything you need to know for the oral. It's just different studying from my experience. So those are different. Know that from the get-go, which leads me to number 5, which would be get your goddamn written done before you start school. I really, truly wish that I would have done this. I really wish I would have done this. I think it made my flight training take way longer than it needed to, on top of the unstructured everything. I was stressed trying to study for this test while also having to do my training, and it just was really hard for me to balance all of it. It's obviously possible, and I obviously did it, but I felt like for that test, I needed what ended up working for me was taking a week off of flight training and just literally spending a week straight studying. There's like 6, 7, 8, I don't remember, a million categories you have to go through, and the questions are so dense. So that test was so hard. I failed it the first time, I'll be so honest with you. I would just get it done before you even get in. Even once you start, I thought for me, I was like, well, it'd be easier once I start learning the airplane and stuff instead of trying to just teach myself the stuff that makes no sense to me with no knowledge of the plane. Trust me, it's still going to feel like French to you, even when you are in flight training. So might as well just get it done now. I promise it'll make your life so much easier. And that leads me to number 6, study every day. I did not understand, truly had no clue the sheer amount of things that I needed to have stored in my brain. Did not know everything I needed to study. I don't think that my first school really prepared me for that or really explained all the things I needed to study. I never really knew what I was supposed to be studying, what I was supposed to do. But let me tell you right now, you need to be studying multiple hours a day from day one. I got so behind on my knowledge and okay, my battery just died, but I got so behind on just my ground knowledge and everything I needed to know because I didn't realize I was supposed to be studying religiously multiple hours a day from the get-go. And to be honest, I've always been really good at school and it's just come easily to me and I've just never really had to study. So I just have been like a 4.0 student without even ever really knowing how to study, to be so real with you. And I also have not been in school for like 8 years. So I just been out here operating in adult land, owning my own business, doing that kind of thing. I had no clue how to be a student anymore, and I got a rude awakening, I'll tell you right now. I definitely had to learn how to study. You're gonna have to study. This like is not stuff that comes naturally to most people. And there's just, I can't even begin to explain to you the sheer amount of information that needs to be stored in this brain, okay? So start studying from the beginning. Flashcards, read your PHAC, read the FAR aim, watch videos online. That would be great. Start studying your pedostatic system, the 4-stroke cycle, airspaces, aeromedical factors, weather, weight and balance, performance. It goes on and on. There's so many things you need to know. It's actually like stressful, but just start watching videos. If anything, that's a good first place to start. Another good thing is to look at what's called the ACS standards. That's what you are going to be graded on at during your check ride. So it will go over all the different categories and things that they are going to ask you questions about, and you can just start looking into it. It took me a while to really understand what I needed to study, and I can talk more about that if you'd like, but definitely be studying every day. Number 7, you are going to suck. I'm sorry, I don't know how to put it any other way than that. I had an identity crisis in flight school because I think I generally tend to be good at most things that I try. And I don't like to be bad at things. I think nobody does, but I had a deep, deep realization and like had to do a lot of personal work. I went to like some seminars and stuff about my aversion to difficulty and challenge. And I had to learn to embrace and enjoy and thrive off of challenge and things being difficult. I made it mean that I was stupid or not going to be a good pilot because things didn't come just immediately naturally to me. And honestly, what I've discovered from talking to other pilots and even hearing other people who are like at the airlines now talk about it, it just genuinely doesn't come that easy to most people. There are the few random people who just like geniuses, they just get it. All this stuff just makes sense. But the vast majority of people, it just doesn't. So it's going to be hard. This might just be the hardest thing you've ever done because it is the hardest thing I've ever done. You're going to suck and just like get used to it. Just already come in with the mentality like, I love challenge. I love to become a stronger person by embracing challenge and difficulty. You just need to have that mindset. Number 8, it is okay for you to change instructors. I wish I would have realized this sooner. I had quite a little experience with instructors. So I had an instructor at my school and I liked him a lot. We got along well. I thought he was a good instructor, but you'll realize that there are just certain learning styles that work better for you. So for me personally, for some reason, something about the way this instructor was teaching me landings just wasn't sticking. The way he explained it just wasn't getting to me. I just couldn't I was just stuck on landings. And so my school was basically like, okay, I think this might not be the best match. I think we need to find somebody who maybe can explain this to you in a little bit better way. I was like, cool. And so they actually ended up switching me instructors. But this next instructor was brand new, which is totally fine. I'm okay with that. My current instructor is brand new and I don't mind. But she just was very, very scared to let me fly. And so she was always taking control. She never like let me fly. And I was at a point in my journey where I was like, okay, I know how to fly and I need to have control all the time. Like I need to learn. And so I ended up after a few lessons with her being like, okay, this isn't really working. And so they switched me to another instructor. And this instructor was like a military guy, okay? And he yelled at me all the time, made me feel so stupid. I would like have almost like I was in fight or flight in the air pretty much all of our lessons, and it was making me so bad, like because I was so stressed I like couldn't even perform well because I was so afraid of making the wrong move, of doing something wrong, and I felt like everything I did was wrong. And I just like being with him was so unbelievably stressful to me that I just like shut down. I shut down. And I felt like I couldn't ask to change instructors because he was my third instructor. I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Like, I just have issues. I just need to get better at this. And I wasted so many hours and so much money on him. So much. I ended up realizing after I ended up changing instructors to somebody who was kind to me, who gave me compliments, who made me just feel comfortable in the cockpit. Like, wait, I actually am a good pilot. And the things I'd been struggling with, like immediately I figured them out and felt very comfortable with them, like shortly after getting with this new instructor. You can't, like, if you are with somebody who makes you feel uncomfortable, who makes you feel stressed constantly, who just doesn't work with your learning style, you're just wasting time and money by staying with them. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend not being afraid of hurting their feelings, not being afraid of your ego, nothing, and just switching instructors. It's okay. I promise sometimes people's learning styles just work better for you and teaching styles, and that's totally fine, okay? Number 9, cadet programs. I didn't take cadet programs into account when I was choosing my school the first time. So when I say cadet programs, I mean kind of pathway programs into different airlines. So the school that I was at originally was just a small little Part 61 school, and it had no affiliations to any cadet programs. Now where I'm at, my current school does. It has multiple relationships with different schools, and so with different airlines, which means that I think when I'm in my commercial license, I think it depends on the airline, at what point in your journey you can apply for it. But I think when I'm in my commercials, when I'll be able to start applying for some of those programs. And I have multiple friends who are in cadet programs, and it is the best thing ever. You get flight benefits while you're in school, or while you're finishing up school, or being a CFI or whatever. You have either a guaranteed job there or a guaranteed interview with them. You already get seniority with them. Some of them give you money back to help pay for some of your training or give you a monthly stipend. It's just like the closest thing that you have to job security, especially at this point. And the little tiny Part 61s just don't have any affiliations with cadet programs. I know ATP has a lot of them. I personally don't recommend ATP based off of things I've heard from a lot of people, and it definitely wouldn't work with my learning style, but they have a lot of cadet programs. I know pretty much all Part 141 have relationships with different cadet programs. So I would definitely look at your specific school when looking at a flight school, see if they do have cadet programs. And then number 10, final, foremost, I just want to give you a little permission here. I just want to let you know that nobody progresses at the same rate, okay? I went into this journey expecting to be the person who finished everything at minimums. I just expected that I would finish my whole program, everything in like a year and a half tops, and I'd be done, and I'd already be like working through and almost like getting close to the airlines. Like I had these unrealistic, crazy, I really thought I'd be done with everything in like a year. That didn't happen for me, okay? I started my flight training October 2022. It is now June 2024, okay? And I am working on my instrument rating right now. I did take a 5-month break after my private pilot license to wait to get into this program for summer semester. So that's something that happened, but I just have realized that like I was working full-time throughout that whole thing too, and it gets really tricky when you're working. Your flights get spread out more. If you're doing any kind of part-time, there's just a lot of factors that come into play. And I beat myself up a lot of like, oh, it took me way too long to get my private pilot license. I had way too many hours. I'm like not a good pilot. Other people have like finished everything in the time that it took me to like, I'm just on my instrument, you know? And I wish, of course, that I were further ahead than I am. But I think I got this idea in my head for a while that like, if I didn't have it done by this time, then I was a bad pilot, or I wasn't gonna be able to do this, or I'm not fit to do this. But I've talked to a lot of pilots, and there's really no like particular time that it took people to get it. I've seen people who went 0 to 100 with their ratings in like 9 months, which is crazy. I've seen people who took like 3-4 years. So there's really no rush. I think that it needs to go at your own pace. I've seen so many pilots, always guys on the internet, saying you need to go through as quick as you can, get through as quick as you can so you can get to the airlines, so you can get your seniority, blah, 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 blah. And yes, like of course you want to get to the airlines as soon as possible, get in line in your seniority, whatever. But I think go at the pace that you need to get through. I finally hit this realization where I'm like, it doesn't matter how fast I get there. This is something that I'm like really challenging myself with. And all that matters is that I stick it out and I finish it. The result is going to be the same in the end. I'm just going to push through, do what I need to do, get it done. It doesn't matter how long it takes me. So long as I finish, I'm really proud of myself, you know? So I just want to say that you can make these plans, you can expect yourself to finish by a certain time, but don't think that you are unfit to be a pilot or that you're not good enough if you can't exceed your own timelines. I think nobody can fully prepare for the sheer amount of ground knowledge that it takes and how just unfamiliar flying an airplane is. So you got this. Let me know what questions you have below. I'm thinking of making a video about the difference between 141 and 61 more in depth. I asked some questions on my Instagram, and I'm going to be doing a little Q&A. I just want to kind of make this a space where I can just get on whenever I have time, which isn't very often, but just kind of post this not super edited, just here you go, video with information as much as I can while I'm in flight school. So enjoy. Let me know if you have any other questions. And sorry, this is on my old YouTube channel with queer history on it. I hope you enjoy that too. Okay, bye.